Today I'll be bringing you 10 tales of cursed objects from across the world. If given the chance, would you ever bite the bullet and decide to interact with one of these objects? Let me know in the comments. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 cursed objects you are forbidden from touching. And we're kicking off the list with Thomas Busby's chair. It all began in the early 18th century in North Yorkshire, England, when a man named Thomas Busby was sentenced to death for taking the life of his father-in-law. Before his execution, Busby had one last request: a final meal at his favorite pub, the Thirsk Tavern. After his meal, he supposedly cursed the chair he'd been sitting in, declaring that anyone who dared to sit in it would meet a grim fate. And over the years, the cursed chair earned a reputation for causing misfortune to those who sat in it. Various stories emerged of people who dared to disregard the curse, only to meet untimely deaths in accidents, battle, or from mysterious ailments. Canadian airmen from a nearby Royal Air Force base were rumored to have mocked the curse and met tragic ends during World War II. The chair's curse became so notorious that the Thirsk Museum decided to hang it on the ceiling to deter people from testing their luck. That's still where the chair sits to this day, by the way. Next up, we have the Kohinoor Diamond. This massive diamond, originating from India, has passed through various hands, leaving a trail of tragedy and misfortune with those who have owned it, primarily men. A Hindu description of the diamond states, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or woman can wear it with impunity." The Kohinoor's first recorded appearance dates back to the 14th century, when it belonged to the Kakatiya dynasty. It was later seized by various rulers, including Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, but its dark reputation began to take shape when the diamond came into possession of Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor, who was imprisoned by his son, and is said to have met a grim end, with the Kohinoor playing a role in his downfall. The diamond changed hands a bunch more times, passing through the Afghan, Persian, and Sikh empires. Every ruler who came into possession of it would meet a horrific end, and every empire would collapse. Number 8. The Haunted Wedding Dress. Anna Baker's cursed wedding dress is a haunted legend that hails from Blair County, Pennsylvania. Anna Baker, the daughter of a wealthy family in the mid-1800s, fell in love with a lowly ironworker, but her father strongly disapproved of the match and did not approve of a marriage. So Anna was coerced into marrying another wealthy suitor, breaking her heart. The wedding never took place, though, with Anna refusing to ever marry. She would wear her dress every night before bed, dancing alone in the middle of the night. It was said that she slowly began losing her sanity. Legend has it that Anna, unable to bear the pain of her lost love, died a bitter old maid in the Baker mansion. As the years passed, strange occurrences were linked to this dress. People claimed to hear the sound of a woman weeping in the mansion. The dress itself was rumored to move on its own within a sealed glass case. Visitors also reported experiencing sudden drops in temperature near the dress, and some were overwhelmed by this eerie, sorrowful presence. Today, the cursed wedding dress is on display in the Baker Mansion Museum, still said to be infused with the heartache and resentment of a love denied. Next on the list, we have the Myrtles Plantation Cursed Mirror. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is renowned for its haunted reputation, and this mirror is one of the most haunted objects in the home. Mr. and Mrs. Woodruff were the original owners of the home, and they owned a number of slaves, one of which was named Chloe, who was treated even worse than the other slaves who worked on the property. At one point, she had her ears cut off by Mr. Woodruff, and she decided to plan her revenge. She poisoned the family with oleander leaves, which she baked into a cake. She hadn't planned to take their lives, but the dose ended up being lethal, and Chloe was hanged. Even after these events, the home would be the site of more tragedy, making this one of the most haunted locations in the USA. Now, for the mirror. In the grand hallway, there is an antique mirror. A number of visitors have reported spotting the ghostly reflections of the Woodruff children inside the mirror. There's also a handprint that just doesn't seem to go away even after the mirror is resilvered. And at number 6 is the Screaming Skull, or Screaming Skulls in general. There are multiple Screaming Skulls that have been reported throughout history. Probably the most famous though is the Battiscombe Screaming Skull of Dorset, England. Each of these skulls has its own story attached to it. Usually someone makes it known that they want to be buried back in their homeland when they die, or want something specifically done with their skull after death. Then they meet some grisly end, their wishes for their desired burial aren't met, and thus a curse is released. Whenever someone tries to remove or disrespect the skull, things get weird. Strange noises start happening, screams, wails. People are met with tragedy in their lives. They're cursed, and whenever the skull is tossed out or attempted to be buried, it mysteriously makes its way back to where it was before. Next up, we have the haunted chairs at Belcourt Castle. Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island is apparently very, very haunted. So haunted that in an almost Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of way, even the chairs themselves seem to have a life of their own, or curse of their own. Visitors describe a cold sensation when they come close to the chairs. There's even one story about a man who sat on one only to be thrown off it. Some visitors have also seen ghostly apparitions sitting in these chairs. Other cursed items at the castle include a suit of armor. Classic, love that gothic horror vibe this place seems to have. Apparently the original owner of the armor took a spear to the face and of course didn't make it. Some say they can hear ghostly cries of pain in the dead of night, especially in the month of March, when the original owner of the armor died. Next up is the Hope Diamond. Our story begins in the 17th century, where this blue gem made its debut in India. Over time, it passed to a number of owners, landing in the collection of a wealthy French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. But there were dark rumors surrounding the diamond, that whoever was in possession of it would be cursed, and Tavernier would meet a gruesome end, dying of a terrible fever, with his corpse then being torn apart by wild dogs. Fast forward to the 19th century, the diamond found its way into possession of King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, who, as we know, faced a tragic fate at the guillotine during the French Revolution. In the early 20th century, American socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean acquired the Hope Diamond, and her life would be full of hardship from that point on. She lost her son in a car accident, her husband left her. The curse seemed to persist when the diamond passed into the hands of jeweler Harry Winston. He later donated it to the Smithsonian Institution, where it remains to this day. Number 3, Robert the Doll. Let's travel back to 1904, sunny Key West, Florida. That's where the story of Robert kicks off. A doll given to a 4-year-old named Robert Eugene Otto. Now, there are different versions of how this doll came into the picture. Some say it was a gift from Gene's grandpa, while others spin a tale of a grumpy maid who cursed the doll before handing it over to the kid. Point is, it's supposedly cursed. As young Gene grew up, something strange started happening. Whenever his stuff got messed up or broken, he'd point right at the doll and say, Robert did it. Fast forward a bit, Gene became an artist, tied the knot, moved back to his childhood home, which he called the artist house, but his wife wasn't too keen on Robert the Doll, so it got booted up to the attic. Now, here's where things get really creepy. Folks walking by the house started whispering about Robert's odd antics. They'd swear up and down that they saw the doll moving on its own and even poking its head out of the attic window. People who visited would claim they heard strange footsteps and ghostly giggles coming from the attic. And when Jean passed away, Robert was passed on to Myrtle Reuter. She put up with 2 whole decades of weird stuff happening thanks to the doll, before saying, you know what, enough is enough. And Robert found a new home at Fort East Martello Museum, where he still sits to this day. People still see him moving around from time to time. Then at number 2, we have the Iceman. Back in 1991, a group of adventurous hikers stumbled upon a frozen figure in the heart of the Otzal Alps, right on the border of Austria and Italy. What they uncovered was the remarkably preserved body of a middle-aged man who had met a violent end more than 5,000 years ago, taken by an arrow. He was given the name Otzi the Iceman. Australian molecular archaeologist Thomas Loy conducted an in-depth study of this frozen relic. His investigation revealed traces of multiple individuals' blood on Otzi, hinting at a violent end in the midst of a skirmish. Thomas Loy passed away from natural causes later on at the age of 63, but some began speculating of a sinister curse that seemed to cling to Otzi. In the year following his discovery, a series of tragic events affected folks closely linked to him. Forensic pathologist Rainer Henn, responsible for moving Otzi's remains, met his end in a car accident while en route to deliver a lecture on Iceman, coincidentally. Shortly after that, mountain climber Kurt Fritz, who had piloted the helicopter that retrieved Otzi, died from an avalanche. The list of tragic deaths continued with Rainer Holtz, the videographer of the retrieval, succumbing to a brain tumor. As time passed, 3 more individuals connected to Otzi died prematurely. Helmut Simon, one of the original hikers, died after a fall. Archaeologist Konrad Spindler, key researcher, died due to complications from multiple sclerosis. Yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, although people do die. I think we all know that, but... Finally, at a number 1 spot, we have King Tut's tomb. We're zipping back to 1922 in the heart of Egypt, where archaeologist Howard Carter stumbled upon the burial chamber of the boy king Tut. In Kumen, this was obviously an incredible discovery, but things got strange from here on out. There were whispers of a curse hovering over this ancient tomb. Legend has it that anyone who dared to disturb King Tut's eternal slumber would face a grim fate. And the moment Carter and his team cracked open the tomb, the curse supposedly swung into action. Odd things started happening to those connected with the discovery. Lord Carnarvon, who financed the expedition, met an untimely death at the hands of a mosquito, which is probably the most embarrassing way I can think of to go. It turns out this curse isn't just deadly, it's damn cruel as well. Others in the team began facing misfortune as well. Illness, accidents, more mysterious deaths. The curse wasn't limited to the excavation team either. It seemed to spread to anyone who came into contact with King Tut's treasures. Even those who just visited the tomb were rumored to be cursed thereafter. All that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.